Hi, everyone. I'm Paul with MadCap Software. All right, global project linking. This is a feature. It's been in Flare for a really long time. A lot of people use it, rely on it, love it. It's a really cool feature. In a nutshell, this is what it is. So you got a Flare project. Let's call it the parent project. And then you might have one or more other children projects that are relying on information, on files from the parent project. So you create those files in the parent project and you maintain them there, and then you import them into one or more children projects. So it's really like single sourcing. People are used to single sourcing within a Flare project. They're used to using snippets and conditions and variables and so on to create content once and reuse it throughout your project wherever you need it. Well, this is sort of taking the same capability outside of a Flare project, external. So it's across projects. So in that way, it's like single sourcing because you are creating a file in one project and you're maintaining it there, but then you're leveraging it. You're importing it into whatever other projects where you need it. Now, here is what I'm going to cover in this project or in this video. I am going to go through the origin story for global project linking because this is one of those features that can seem like a mystery to people at first. And so my goal in this is to unravel the mystery. And a lot of times I find that it helps me sometimes we'll get new features that we're going to start working on at MadCap Software in Flare or in other products. And at first, the feature doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but then I'll dig and I'll ask, okay, so where did this come from? What's the origin? Why did someone ask for it? What problem are they trying to solve? And I find that if I understand that, then it helps me understand the feature better. So that's why I'm going to begin by telling you about the origin story for global project linking. Then I'm going to get into a concept that I like to call the threshold. It helps you determine whether or not you should be using global project linking because it will be great for some people, but for other people, they maybe shouldn't use it. And so I'm going to talk about this idea of the threshold, and I'm going to get into Flare, and I'm going to actually into 4 Flare projects through the course of this video. And I'm going to run through the steps, the importing and the re-importing, and go through all of the settings. It's not a lot of settings, but you kind of need to go through each one and see it in action to understand what these settings are all about and whether you should use one setting or maybe not. All right. And so we'll do importing and re-importing. And then I'm going to wrap up by talking about certain global project linking rules because you could, for example, have different settings in the import editor where you're telling it one thing in one place, one thing in another place, and you need to understand, well, what wins? That's one example of a rule. So we're going to finish up by going through the rules. All right. So global project linking, there is a lot of ground we're going to cover. So just, hold on to your britches. Let's do this thing. So here is where global project linking began. Many years ago, back in the dark ages, we started with Flare version 1. And so I had to create a project to document Flare. And so I'm using a Flare project and I'm writing about Flare. So I just thought, well, I'll just name this thing Flare. So that was the first Flare project. And shortly after we released version 1 of Flare, we quickly came out with MadCap Capture. So thought, okay, I guess I need to create a second project, and I guess I'll name that Capture. So that's what I did. So I had 2 projects, and before I knew it, we had 3 or 4 products at MadCap Software, and so I had 3 or 4 Flare projects, one named after each product. That's how I began. But early on, it really was bothering me. Something was bothering me. And it started for me with the style sheet. And I thought, well, this doesn't make sense that I've got these 3 or 4 different Flare projects and the style sheet's virtually the same in all of these. It doesn't make sense to be maintaining it in 4 different places. Flare is all about single sourcing. Why am I not single sourcing across these projects? And I'm sure that at the time there were probably other people out in the Flare universe who had the same issue. And I'm just telling you my perspective because that's the only perspective that I really have here. And so I approached people in the company and suggested, could we come up with a solution for this so that I'm not just duplicating things and going against the golden rule of single sourcing? And so that is how global project linking was initially born. And so I got my hands on it and I started using it, and great, I can bring in the style sheet. But I quickly discovered that, well, it's more than just the style sheet. I also have some page layouts that are pretty much the same. And I've got some images that are the same and other files. And so I wanted to bring in other files. And so I'm using global project linking to do that. I've got these 4 projects and I am connecting, 2 or 3 of them to the first Flare project. And I'm working in the Flare project. I'm generating output from all of them. But the Flare one, that was the very first project. So I'm really using that as home base. So that is where it began. Now, what happens and what happened with me is over time, the projects grow and grow and grow and grow. And you start importing more and more files, or you can, at least I did. And so I had to come to a decision. Do I really want to, does this make sense for me to keep working in this way? And now I am going to talk to you in the next section about that decision I came to. And it really has to do with this concept that I like to call the threshold, where you make a decision about whether global project linking is the best feature for your use case. And for some people, yes, absolutely, global project linking is what they should do. And for other people, maybe not. So that's what I'm going to do in the next section. All right. So for me, over time, I got a lot of content in my projects, and I'm importing lots and lots and lots of stuff. And at some point during this, I kind of came to the conclusion that no, I want to put all of my documentation into one project. And that's what I did. And I just named it Shared, because now it wasn't just Flare, it wasn't just Capture, it wasn't these other products. So I called it Shared. And to this day, it's called Shared. And so that was the decision I made. And why did I make that decision? Well, over time, I was just importing so many files. I just, through trial and error, I just decided that, it wasn't worth the extra effort to do this importing. It made more sense for me to put it all in one project. And so I think that I just kind of passed that threshold. And so I wish I could tell you exactly what that threshold is. I wish I could give you a number that, I was importing, whatever, 40% of my files. I'm just making that up in. And so that became too much. And it just made sense to put it all into one and rely more on source control to keep things in sync with me and somebody else who's writing. So that was the decision I made. But if I had not had so many files that I was wanting to bring in that were being shared among the different product documentation, I probably would still be using the global project linking now. So I'm not using it for the main product documentation anymore. However, I have used it over the years for a couple of other reasons that initially were not in my head, that I didn't think this is what it's for. For example, when we came out with side navigation output, I used it to kind of change everything over to side navigation, and I did a one-off import. All right, so I used it for that. But to this day, I still use it for other reasons. And the reason that I still use it to this day has to do actually with source control branching and MadCap Central. And I am not going to go off on that road and talk about that because that'll be forever. But I do still use it for that purpose, not the original purpose. So what I'm telling you is that you just need to make your own decision. And sometimes you just kind of feel this as you're using it. Now, I would say that for some people, global project linking is the way to go. Maybe you are working, you have a workflow in your company where you absolutely want to keep things in separate projects. Maybe it just works well for you to have each writer working on their own project. And then you are drawing things from this parent. Maybe the parent is a project that is also producing output, or maybe it's just a repository. And that's the only purpose, is to just maintain these shared files. So in that case, global project linking is probably really good for you. Or maybe you're just not importing, a tremendous number of files. Then it's probably a really good thing. If it's just certain, maybe project files, your style sheet and some variables and things like that. But if you find that, oh gosh, but you're also importing all these topics and snippets and blah, 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 maybe you get the feeling as you're doing this that, oh, I've passed the threshold and it's probably more, it's probably just better. And I make better progress if I, don't use that anymore and put everything in one project. I can't answer that for you. I wish that I could, but I would probably, I would test it out. I would go through it and test it out. It's sort of like when you're trying to make a decision in life and you write pros and cons. And if the pros outweigh the cons, use it. And if they don't, then don't. Oh, the other part to this is how frequent are changes being made for all these files. If you're not having to do it that often, maybe it makes more sense. But if it's just constant, maybe not. So there's all these different factors to just weigh to make your decision. So I just wanted to put all of that out there, hopefully help you make your own decision about whether you should be using global project linking or not. But if you decide, yeah, I do want to use it, I just want to understand how to use it, how it works, well, that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to open up Flare and we're going to go through the whole thing. Now, in this section, we're going to get into Flare. I'm going to take you through the import process that happens when you first set up your global project linking. And through the course of this video, there's going to be 4 projects I'm going to show you. I'm going to begin by showing you, and I just named them Project 1, Project 2, Project 3, Project 4. So Project 1 is, we're going to consider that the parent project. And the others are children projects, and they're going to get stuff from the parent project, from Project 1. So let's begin by going into Flare. I'm going to show you these projects and set things up so that we can begin importing. So here is Project 1, and you can see I've got some topics in here. It's just based on one of our project templates, and there's some project level files in here. Not a ton of things, but enough that we can work with. So this is where I'm going to create files and maintain the files. All right. Now let's go into Project 2. And this project, all of these projects actually, I created based on the empty project template in Flare. I'm just showing you as I go into the wizard here. There it is right here, this empty one, which isn't completely empty, but it's got the fewest number of files. And you can see it's just got one topic under resources, just got a page layout in here. It does have some project files in here. There's target, TOC, some other things. All right, so we're beginning with that. And so all of these children projects are starting out the same way. Now, I want to get files from Project 1. So the first thing that I do is create a project import file. And I do this in the project organizer. Come to imports. It's empty right now. I'm going to right click this and select Add Flare Project Import File. And you give it a name. I already have one in here, import from other project. Name it whatever you want. Click Add. And it's going to add this editor over here on the right. Here's my file, my import file. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to put in my settings. Now, the first thing that I want to do is point to the source project, the parent project. So I'm going to click Browse, and I go find my parent project, in this case, project 1, select that, open, and it loads it into here. Okay, so now we've got this editor, and you can see it's not a tremendous number of settings, but we do kind of just want to walk through all of these. So as we work through these different projects, I'm going to have some settings in one, some in another. So let's just go through here. Auto re-import before generate output. All right, so you can, after you do your initial import, which you're going to do by clicking this button, after that, this button will change to re-import. And you can always click it to re-import manually. But this little check box lets it, you do this automatically. When you attempt to generate your output, Flare is first going to go, oh, but you have this import file. I'm going to import the latest stuff. So just in case you forgot, so that everything's up to date. That's what that is. So we're going to leave that selected for this one. Now I'm going to skip these couple of checkboxes here for the moment, come back to them. We want to come down to include files and the exclude files. So you're telling it, what do I want to bring in? What do I want to keep out? So the include files by default right now, it's just set to pull in all the topic files. And so it says it here, and it gives you the file extensions, HTML or HTML. It's going to bring all of those in. Well, let's say that I don't want to bring in all the topic files. I want to bring in something else. I can do this in a couple of ways. I can type directly in here, and you type file extensions and separate them with a semicolon, and you can use this wildcard, this asterisk before the file extensions. But you can also click this edit button, and this is going to allow you to add or remove the different file types that you want to bring in. I don't want to bring in topics, so I'm going to remove both of those, and I'm going to click add. And let's say that I just want to bring in all CSS files, all style sheets. So I come down here and I find style sheet, CSS. There's also table style sheets, but I only need to select one of these because they're both CSS. And I can click add, and it brings it into this grid. Now I'm not done, because I think, well, I also want to bring in all template pages. So I click this again, and I come down, template page, FLMSP. Yeah, I want to bring all of those in. All right. And then I think, well, I also want to bring in all the snippet files. And I'm just taking you through an example. In real life, you might want to be more discriminating than this. Maybe it's only some snippet files or some page or template pages, or whatever. Okay, so snippet, FLSMP, I'm going to click OK. All right, so I've got these 3 file types in here, and I'm going to click OK. So it adds these in here with their asterisks and separated by semicolons. I don't remember if I said commas before, but it's semicolons that separates these. And let's say that I also want to bring in a very specific file. I can just type it in here. So the project 1 project has an image in here called hero-image.png. Okay, so let's say that I want to bring in that specific file in addition to these other file types. So I don't want to bring in all images. I just want to bring in hero. Oops. What was it called again? My memory's going. Hero-image.png. Okay. Got those in there. Cool. And now the file is dirtied. We got the asterisk up here, so we need to save it. Great. All right. Let's go into the other project, project 3, the next one. And let's do kind of the same thing, but we're going to have different settings. So I'm going to begin by adding my Flare project import file. And I'm going to just name it the same thing, add. Come find my source project. And it's the same one, project 1, click OK. All right. Now, in this case, let's see what happens when we have this deselected, the auto re-import. All right, so we'll deselect that. And now we come down here and we go, well, hey, I just want to include everything. So I can select from the dropdown all files. It's going to bring in everything. All right, except maybe now I want to exclude something. And the other one, we didn't mess with this exclude files, but now let's go down and do it. I'm going to say, I want to bring in everything except topics. So I'm going to click edit down here, and I'm going to go find topics. All right. Click OK. So it's bringing in everything except topics. Cool. That is our beginning for this. Let's go back now and let's go to project 2, the first child project. And let's actually go through the import process for this. So I'm going to click and let's go to the Content Explorer, because you can see I'm mostly bringing in content files that are going to show up here in the Content Explorer. So we want to see this thing grow. All right, click import, and it brings up this dialog, accept imported documents. And based on my selections, it lists everything. Okay, it goes, this is what I'm going to bring in, and it automatically has a check mark next to all of these. And I could deselect something if I change my mind, or I could keep it selected. And over on the right, it gives you a preview of whatever file that you select down here, what's coming in. All right, so I'm just going to click accept on this, and you see how it grew. My resources folder grew a lot. I just had page layouts, but now I've got all these other things in there. And if I expand one of these and look at it, the one thing that you noticed is, if you look closely, you can see a little icon here. It's like a lock. All right, and it's showing that it's a link icon, and so it's showing that this thing is linked somewhere else. It's linked to that other project. If I open up page defaults where I had this original file, I don't have that link icon next to that. That's how you know whether something is coming from that other project. Okay, the other thing I want to show you is, now that I've imported it, I can come into the project import editor and select import files, and it shows me this is all the stuff you've imported. All right, so that's what we got going on for this one. Now I also want to show you what happens if you come into one of these files that's linked. You've got that link icon on it, and you try to make a change. Well, Flare is really smart about this. Open up this simple snippet in here. And by the way, look how ugly this looks. It's because it's not really associated with a style sheet yet. And I could change that. I could quickly change that here in the project ribbon, go to project properties, and I could point to that style sheet that's been brought in. And now it looks better. All right. So I didn't change this yet. All I did was associate my style sheet with the project. Okay, but let's say that I want to add some content in here. And then the second that I press a key, it brings up this dialog. Flare's going, hey, you're linked to this other project. What do you want me to do? Well, I can tell it to continue with the operation, which means, look, I know what I'm doing. I just want to make my change. Don't bother me. All right. So you can do that, or you can remove the link and continue the operation. All right. So what that means is it's going to allow you to edit this file, but now it's going to this icon that you see, the link icon, it will go away. And in the future, it's not going to bring in this file anymore from your parent project, because you told it to cut the link, to remove it. This last one, remove the link and cancel the operation. So you're saying, oh yeah, I decided I don't want to edit it right now, but I still want to remove the connection to the parent project. You can select that one as well. All right, so let's just do this one. Let's do continue with operation. Click OK, and I'm going to add new text in here. All right, so it let me do it. Now, it also gives you a little message when you try to save. So I'm going to try to save it, and it brings up a similar document. It goes, okay, look, this thing is linked. It's still linked. What do you want to do? You want to go ahead and save the document? And so if you do that, this isn't going to match what's in the parent, but you're still linked. You go, yeah, I still want to do it, or save the document and remove the link, or save the document but use a new name, right? So it'll become a brand new file in there, and it won't be coming, you just created a new file in your child project. So you could do that too. We're just going to save the document, continue. So it's still linked, but I got my new text in there. All right. Now, the other thing that I would do probably the first time that I import from my parent project is run an analysis, because you might have brought in just certain files, but those really they have some dependencies. They require other files that are in the parent project, and you just didn't think of them. You just didn't realize. So if you run an analysis, go to the analysis ribbon, click summary, and it's going to quickly scan this. The larger the project, the longer it takes. And it will run through this. And what you're doing is looking for things that are in red. So you've got some broken links here. And you've got some undefined variables. All right. So what are the broken links? Well, we open this up and we go, oh yeah. So the styles, you brought in the style sheet, but there's these images that are referenced in there, minus and plus PNG, plus you got these variables from the variable set. You go, oh yeah. So you have to make a decision. Do you also want to import those as well? And then undefined variables, that it has to do with those variables that didn't come in. So what we can do is we can go into our editor and make some adjustments. And let's say, all right, let's bring in also these images and variable sets. So come into here, into our import editor, go back to the source project tab, and let's add in here semicolon minus dot png semicolon plus dot png, and then let's also just add all variable sets. There's only one in there, but let's go ahead and add that in there. All right, so it adds all this stuff in here, and now next time that we do an import, we shouldn't have these problems in the analysis tool. All right, now let's go into project 3, the other child project, the second one that we've set up. And let's, so we have these settings. We're bringing in all files except for the topic files. Let's do the import. And there's a whole bunch more stuff coming in, right, than the other one. Not only that, but you also got these things that are showing up in green, because what's happening is Flare's going, hey, you told me to bring in a condition tag set and targets. You told me to bring in all that stuff, but I'm finding that in your child project, you already have one and it's got the same name. What do you want to do? And so it'll select these items. It's just letting you know from the green that if you do this, it's going to replace what's in the child project. All right, so let's go ahead and click accept. Yeah, we're going to replace those. And it's telling me that's what you're doing here. And you go, okay. All right, so it brought all that stuff in. We go to the imported files tab, and you can see this is everything that was brought in. Good. All right, so what else? Let's go and do the same kind of thing we did in the other one. Let's go into the snippet in here. All right, and we are going to try to edit this one too. Again, I can go and add this just kind of bothers me how that looks. So I'm just gonna set my style sheet at the project level so it looks nicer. And let's add some content in here too, or try to. So as soon as I click that, press a key, it opens this up. But this time, instead of just continuing with the operation, let's say remove the link and continue with the operation. So I go, okay. So it does. And it's given me this dialog because actually this file was dirtied. And so I am going to click past this and the file is added. All right, so we did that. So what happened here was this is dirt. Okay, so this one was dirty. That's why we got that dialogue. And so now I can add my new text in here. And what happened, notice that the link was removed, and the link was removed here too. So I no longer have that connection. So in the future, when I re-import, it's not going to bring in snippet 1. And if I go back to my import editor and I look at removed links, now this one is listed in here. I cut the connection. That's what these tabs are for, to let you know what you've imported over time, what you've removed the links to. Okay, so we've done that. And now this dirty, you also want to watch, sometimes when you're clicking around, you might see this dirty with the asterisk. And so I just save it, go back to our analysis ribbon, click summary, and let's run through this and see if there are any problems. Yeah, I got 15 broken links in here, and you can open that and see what they are. I don't see any other red in here. I'm not going to go through and fix these like I did the other one. We're just going to kind of stop there with the import. All right, so this is what it's like to go through an initial import from the parent project into a child project. But over time, you're just re-importing things. And so that's what we're going to do in the next section. And we're going to re-import, and we're going to go in and look at some of these other settings because we only looked at a few. Okay, so we got to start. We've already imported some files into a couple of child projects. We haven't even touched project 4, which is another child project. Let's go back into Flare and let's do some re-importing. And we're also going to get into that last project, project 4 as well. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my parent project, project 1, and I'm going to go to these snippets in here, and I'm going to add some content in here that is coming from the parent. So parent change, and let's go into the other one, and we'll just kind of do just some more text in here. So this is coming from the parent project, and we'll save it all. Now let's go into that project 2, the first child project that we had created. And let's look at our settings here. So I can re-import manually or automatically. And I can just click this button in the import file. Remember that import file was added here in the project organizer. And I can click this to just kind of go through the same thing to re-import. But in this case, I have also selected this checkbox to auto re-import before generate output. So that's pretty cool. Let's try that. Let's go find our target. I'm going to right click that and tell it to build. And what happens here, you saw that flicker a little bit. It actually was going, all right, I'm going to build your output, but you are connected to this other project. I'm going to see if there's things that need to change. And so it automatically went through and imported those, and then just continued on with the build. And it happened pretty quickly because this is a small project. Now you look on the build, no warnings because I fixed those. Remember the analysis tool told me, hey, you got these problems. Well, I fixed them right ahead of time. So I kind of headed off some issues here. Okay, so built the output, and let's see. We want to go in to look at our snippets now. And I open up the first one, and it says, here's my first snippet, parent change. Here's the other snippet, another parent change. Now in the first snippet, I had made my change earlier. Remember, I had added some content in here, and it gave me that message, and I said, yeah, it's all right. I'm just going to make my change anyway. Well, what happened was because I was still connected, I'm linked to the parent project, when it re-imported, it just overwrote my changes. So that's going to happen, all right, if you continue with that linking. All right, let's go into the third or the project 3, and let's go and let's try to do the same thing. Let's try to build the output. Now, this one I don't have set up to auto re-import, so it's not going to work. And in fact, when I build this output, it's probably not going to let me yeah, it failed. And why did it fail? Why did it fail? It's because I didn't fix those issues. And it's telling me, hey, your selected default topic does not exist. Well, what it's talking about is I imported, remember this project, I imported everything except for the topics, and that included this target. And if you look in the target in here, it is going to have this field, startup topic, home. All right. Well, I didn't import the topics, and so that's missing, and it couldn't even build. That's why it just didn't work. All right. So, but even if I had things fixed and I clicked build output, it's not going to do the import automatically because this thing isn't selected. I have to go and re-import it manually. And so this same dialog comes up, all these files in here, but one difference is these things are not automatically checked because Flare goes, hey, you're linked to all this stuff, but it recognized right away that they're the same because I didn't make any changes in the parent or the child. But I did in this one, snippet 2. Now, also remember that when I made my change in snippet 1 in the previous section of this video, I made my change in snippet 1 and I told it to cut the link. I told it, don't import this anymore. So it's not. So otherwise it would be bringing up snippet 1 and snippet 2 because I made changes in both. Automatically, it selects the checkbox and this thing is green because it's saying, hey, this is newer. Now, one thing, just one tip, in this case, I'm just re-importing one file now, but you might end up with tons of new files that are being imported. And if you're paranoid like me, you kind of want to make sure that the checkboxes are next to them. What I tend to do is I'll click this status column to sort. So everything that is green that I need to look at is in the same place. And I just kind of, I'll look through and I'll verify, yeah, it's got a check mark next to it. The other thing, this is green, but if I had made a change in the source, in the child project file, right? And I'm still importing into here, it would bring up that row in red. It would say, hey, the other file is newer, the one that's in the child project. And so you need to make a decision. Do you want to overwrite that or not? So that's going to be in red. This one is green because the source, the one from the parent project, is newer. All right, click accept. It's going to overwrite snippet 2. And sure enough, if I go look at snippet 2, there's the change from the parent. And snippet 1 is the same as it was because I cut the link. Okay. Now let's do something else. All right, so in the parent project, project 1, I'm going to close these things so we don't have anything open. And let's get rid of snippet 2. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to delete this. It's not linked to any topics or anything, so it's going to let me delete it just fine. Now let's go back into, again, we're going through and I'm going to close all but this editor. So, and this thing. So we want to go through some of these other settings in here. Well, let's see about this checkbox right here, delete stale files. So what this does is this automatically detects, it goes, all right, you previously imported a certain file, but in the parent project, it's no longer there, or something happened to it. And so it's no longer, it was maybe moved or something like that. So we are going to remove that file that was originally imported into the child project. We're just going to clean it up for you. That's what delete stale files does. So we can re-import here. And what happens is in this dialog, you can see, okay, saying, hey, the source is missing and you told us to clean things up, to delete the stale files. So it's got this selected. So what's going to happen is once I click accept, it's going to delete snippet 2. It cleans it up for us. All right. So that happened. Now let's go into project 3, another child project. And let's do the same thing. We still have snippet 2 in here, but let's not select delete stale files and see what happens. We re-import, and it will, now I didn't make any changes, and so it brings up this thing and nothing is selected because no changes. And so I click accept. It just keeps snippet 2 in here. It didn't clean it up. That is what that checkbox does. Okay, I'm going to go back over to project 2, and we're going to do something similar. This checkbox right here, delete unreferenced files. All right, I am going to go into the parent project actually, and I've got this image in here, logo PNG. All right, let's say that I decide I want to import this as well, and I'm going to import it into project 2. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to just add this logo.png. All right, I'm going to click off of that so that this file will dirty and I can save it. And I am going to, even though this is set up for auto re-import, I'm just going to do a re-import, and it's going to bring in my logo. All right, so there is the file. Okay, so I've done that. Now, let's say that I decide, all right, I actually don't want to link to that anymore. So I'm going to get rid of it from the include files, click off to dirty, save. And I re-import again. All right, and so there's no changes, nothing's coming up. Okay, so do that, nothing happens. But if I select this option right here, this is saying, okay, before you had a file in here that you were including, and we previously added it, right? It's here. Now you've said, don't include that anymore, but we still got that. So this is going to clean that up. All right, so I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to re-import with that checkbox, and you get this thing, and it's selected. And it's going to tell you, all right, you selected that checkbox, so we're going to delete this. And you go, yep, do it. So logo is gone. That's what that checkbox is. Okay, now we've gone through several of these options, but there's still some that we haven't touched on. This auto include linked files and these things down here. So actually what we're going to do is let's go into project 4. The one that we haven't even set up yet. And let's go in and create a new import file and name it the same thing. And we're going to point to our same source project, project 1. And what we're going to do is I am going to, instead of using include files and exclude files, I'm more going to rely on conditions. So when this feature was first being developed, global project linking, it stopped after exclude files. It was just this stuff. Well, what happened was I started realizing that, hey, there's a lot of individual files that I do want to bring in or not bring in. And this can get kind of cumbersome, just adding files, specific files in these fields right here. And so I asked, could we use conditions for this? And they added conditions. So that is what I started using more than using these fields up here. All right, so there can be sort of a combination of settings in here, because you can still have things that are set up here and conditions set down here. And we're going to go through this in the last section where we talk about the rules. What happens when you're telling it one thing in one place and another thing in another place, what wins? All right, what we're going to do here is we are going to go, first of all, let's look at the parent project, because I do have condition tag set in here. And I have all these conditions, and I just created these import stuff 1, import stuff 2, import stuff 3, just to take you through this. And in my Content Explorer, you can see that I've got some conditions set. Now I've got import stuff 1 set on this folder. And so if you've got lots of files that are under a folder and you want to apply the same condition to them, you can just apply the condition to just the folder. It does the same thing. It saves you work. But then under here, under this folder, I've got these individual topics, and this one has import stuff 1, this one has import stuff 2, this one has import stuff 3. Okay, so these are things that I've set conditions on, and I want to do an import based on conditions mostly. All right. And you can do this both for things that are in the Content Explorer and the Project Organizer. Notice the Project Organizer also has these not checkboxes. They look like checkboxes. These are for conditions. And actually, the whole reason why files in Project Organizer even have these is because of global project linking, is so that you can do that. There is a misunderstanding that people think if you put conditions on these things, it's going to not include that stuff in the output. That's not how it works. These things still may impact the output. Now, in the Content Explorer, it kind of works both ways. You can put conditions on these and they can be used for global project linking, but they can also be set to include or exclude in the target. So it has an impact on them for the output. It's just that Project Organizer doesn't work that way. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so now you see what conditions I've got in here. Let's go into our project 4. So in here, you can see it's already set. I'm going to include all topics, all topic files. What am I going to exclude? Nothing. I'm not going to exclude anything. But I'm going to come down here to import conditions. I'm going to open this up and I can say, hey, I want to include this and this. Those are the only things I want to import, things that have those two. I'm not going to import, this one with the import stuff 3. They're set to exclude. And I click OK, and it shows me my settings in there, and I click Save. Now, if I go in and I select Import, it's going to bring this up, and it shows me all topics, not just the ones I set my conditions on, because by default, what's going to happen is in Project 1, these things that don't have any conditions on them, they're going to be brought in. Because I told it, bring all the stuff in, bring all the topics in, right? But I can get around that by selecting this checkbox right here, auto exclude non-tagged files, things that don't have the conditions that meet, this criteria. Now, if I click import, it's only bringing up these 5 right here, the ones that have conditions. These 3 at the top are under that folder that has a condition. These have individual conditions on them. All right. So I'm just being more targeted in what I'm bringing in through using conditions. Now I'm going to click cancel out of this too. Remember, we've got 5 things in here. So the other thing I want to show you though is this checkbox right here, auto include linked files, because you might have certain files that are linked to others. And remember, I showed you earlier when I brought things in and there were dependencies and I had to go look into the analysis tool, and then I added those to the import so that things wouldn't break. Well, you can do that automatically by selecting this guy right here. I'm going to select Save. So I'm going to go in and show you the fact that in the parent project that there's something linked. So here in the parent project, remember, I am bringing in this topic because it meets my conditions. And I open this up and you can see I've got a link to feature 3, which is right here, which I am not bringing in through any of my settings. But Flare is going to look at that little checkbox and it's going to say, yeah, but you got this thing, so I'm going to bring that in too. All right, because you told me to right here. So now if I click import, all right, it's bringing in these original 5 things, Plus it's bringing in feature 3 because it's linked. Plus it's bringing in this condition tag set because I did that. And it realizes, hey, you need the condition tag set too. So it's kind of doing this work for you. So then we can just click accept, and it's going to overwrite that condition tag set. And voila, we're done there. So that was a lot. That takes you through all the settings though. And so what we want to finish up with is take a look at some of the rules, some of the things you got to keep in mind when you're dealing with global project linking. All right, so as you can see, there aren't a lot of options in, or a lot of settings in that, that import editor, but it can do a lot of stuff. There are a lot of variations that could take place. So I want to wrap this up by just going through some global project linking rules so that you know what happens when different settings are activated or disabled. All right, so as we look at this editor, let's go through a few things. First rule is include files. This thing right here is required. You got to have something in here. Even if you're going to decide you're going to be using conditions, you got to have something in here. Do you want to initially say, hey, I want to include everything or certain file types? Just, you got to have something in here. Exclude files is not required. You can just say, don't exclude anything, but then you can rely on the conditions, or you can deselect things in the accept, that accept dialog and keep them out there. You don't have to fill this in at all. Another thing is, remember when we clicked import or re-import and we get that dialog, the accept dialog, and you got the checkboxes. Well, Flare is smart. It has this memory where it remembers whether something has been changed before, whether it should have a file should have a check mark next to it or not. And if you have a file in the current project, which is newer, remember I said that's going to show up, it's going to be highlighted in red in here. There will be a red background. If that happens, Flare will not be selected to replace it automatically. And so you probably want to keep that in mind, especially if you're using this auto re-import thing, okay? Condition tags, this thing down here, not required. Now, if you want to get very specific with what files are included or excluded, I recommend using that, because this just gets, this can get filled up in a hurry with files. If you're putting in more than file types, you're putting in specific files. So, but you don't have to use condition tags. What if so you have to have include files selected. What if you have some stuff in here and you also have the conditions part down here? Well, conditions wins. It has precedence over include files. So if you're telling it one thing up here in include files and you're telling it a different thing down here under conditions, conditions wins. Also, if you tell it to exclude something and you have given it conflicting information in include files, exclude files will win. So exclude files has precedence over include files. And so what about all three of them together? Exclude files has precedence over conditions, which has precedence over include files. And one more in here, this auto include linked files. What if you have that selected? Okay, well, exclude files has precedence over this thing, which has precedence over conditions. All right, so you might tell it, hey, exclude this file, and this thing is detecting, hey, but this thing is linked from another file. Because I don't care, because you told me to exclude it. Excluding is going to win all the time. And the last thing to bring up here, this auto include linked files, you saw me go through that, and I just had a couple of files that were affected that were additionally brought in because of this. But just know that files have a way of one thing linked to another, and it's not hard to see this domino effect. where it doesn't take much before lots and lots and lots of files are added if you have this selected. It's really cool because it does a lot of heavy lifting for you, but just know that you could end up with a bunch of files being imported that you didn't originally think were going to be imported. Those are just some of the rules that I just wanted to let you know about before you dive into the whole global project linking thing. Okay, I know that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff to take in, and it will take just a little bit of time for it to swish around in your brain and all come together, but it will. I'm telling you, this is a really cool feature. It can help you out a lot if you determine that, yes, this is for me. What I would really recommend that you do, though, is practice before you actually implement it into your real projects. And so if it were me, if I had a big project and, child projects, and I thought, I want to see if this is going to work. I'm going to see how it's going to work. What I would do is I would go up, I would open up a project, go up into the project ribbon, and there's the export project option in there. And I would select that, and I would export my project, creating a clone of that. I would create a clone of my parent and of the children projects. And then I would take some time, go through the settings and run through some scenarios and see what happens, see if you like it, if you're getting out of it what you expect, what you want. Because in the end, you want to use this feature if it's going to help you, if it's going to help you work faster and more efficiently. All right, as Global Project Linking, thanks so much for watching this video. We'll talk to you next time.